Hello, let's learn how to deploy your Dockerfile to zCloud using our CLI and also using GitHub. So first, let's show the website, and you have here two options, like you can connect with GitHub and we also can connect with the CLI. So I want to start with the CLI. So going to our docs, we have multiple options here, including also using the CLI inside a GitHub action. But let's click this option first, that is to install the CLI. So first you can install the CLI in any directory that you want. And we also recommend you to run this command and then put this path, like where you run this command, in your global path. So you can just run zcloud from anywhere. Then using the CLI, you usually are going to use the user token or the env token to authenticate your request, and then the environment that you want to deploy to, the content of the current folder. So it's very simple. It's just deploy, and that's going to do all the work for you. And you can also see other options here. For example, if you are in a monorepo and you want to deploy a subfolder, you can use this option. But it's very intuitive, and you can also see if you have some problems, it's going to notify you with errors. So I create a project. Let me show you. A very simple project. I was thinking like, oh, what I want to show. So I decided to do something that I think it's cool. Like you're going to deploy Jest test. If you're not familiar with like JavaScript, it's just a framework to run tests. And then I configure Jest in a way that it's going to have an HTML. And then my Dockerfile is going to use Nginx with a very simple configuration just to show the report from my test. So if you are a JavaScript developer, maybe it's a little bit fun to you. So you can learn how to run the test and have this HTML report. If you're not from the JavaScript world, just think about like Nginx serving a static file. But just because we are here, so it's a very simple code, like just say hello, and then I have a test that checks if you say hello, says hello. So that's basically what this code is testing. And then we have our Dockerfile. I'm starting from the Nginx official image. Then I am installing Node.js. Then I'm checking the version. Then I'm copying my source to this source folder here. So I'm copying everything that is here to my source folder. I also have my work dir. So it's where in Docker, I'm going to consider my current directory. Then I run the test that I just showed you. Very simple one. And then I copy my Nginx config to the proper place where we should configure Nginx in this image. And then we run Nginx. So we can also test this first here. So let's test first locally to see if our Docker image is running as we expected. So first I'm going to run Docker build. I'm just using this flag because otherwise I get a warning, but you can ignore this flag. But I just want to run my Docker build, so I create the image first. So let's run this. Okay, so my image is created, and as you can see, in my image I already built the test, and I already generated the file that is going to be served by Nginx. So this is basically a way to create this report automatically here. Then I'm going to run my image with this command here, just providing the name of my container, the port that I'm exposing, and the name of my image here. Okay, I am using orbstack here. So I'm going to open orbstack and I can see my test report here. If you're just running like the default Docker desktop, that's okay as well. So I can see it's my local machine, but I can see my test and my test is passing. So my Nginx is able to serve this file to me. Like if I go to another route, I'm going to get this Nginx error because I just have the index file. So that's the only file that I have here. So, okay, so it's working locally. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to zcloud. So I'm going to zcloud. I can just authenticate here. Then you have a new account and I'm going to create a new app. I'm not going to use GitHub this way to connect a repository because my repository is not on GitHub yet, but we are going to do that in a moment. First, I'm going to use the CLI. So I'm going to click here and I'm just going to choose the smallest size. That's just one zcloud. Then I'm going to put like Jest and I'm going to put the name of my environment as test. I'm going to go with the default region, that is US3. And here I have a lot of options, but I want to show you how to deploy any Dockerfile. So I could paste the content here, but I already have the content in my folder in the Dockerfile. So this path is my path to my local folder inside this project. So can you see the Dockerfile here, right? So that's the Dockerfile that's going to be used to run our application in zCloud. I'm going to use the root directory. I'm going to use this default port. Everything is basically default. I'm going to click here to get my deploy instructions. And here now I have all the configurations that I need, and I already install the CLI. So we just run this command and put in your path. Then I'm going to go to inside my folder, and then I'm going to run zCloud deploy. If you don't want to use your user token, let me show you how you can get the token from the specific environment. So I'm going to click here to see my environment. I don't have anything here yet because my environment is empty. I need to do a first deploy, but I can go to settings. Again, this is just if you don't want to use your user token because that belongs to your user. Maybe you want to use the environment token. So I can get my environment token here. And if I disallow deploys from users just with this environment token, the example above is already going to use the environment token. So that's just two ways to authenticate, but this way you don't need to expose your token. And that's why I'm doing this. So I don't expose my token as my user in this video because this environment I'm going to drop later. So I'm going to just click here to copy it. So this token is encrypted, but when you click in copy with decrypted in the server, then you send to your clipboard here. Then I'm going to go back here and I'm already in the correct folder. And then I'm going to paste. And as you can see, it's a very simple command, like just zCloud deploy. You have the environment token. So I'm exposing here because I can regenerate or I can delete this environment after I record this video. And also the environment name. Okay. So now I'm going to just run this. And you can see that was really fast. Why? Because we just uploaded these files. Now the build is going to happen in our build machine and not in your local machine. So you can run this from a very small machine and it's going to work fine, even if the project is really heavy. So now we can click in this link, but it's the same link that I was already in the page, but I can open here. Okay, so what's happening now? My build is happening. So if I want, I can take a look in my logs. So I can go to my logs tab. So I can see in real time my logs coming. Like the image is quite small, so my build is almost done already. But you can see the whole logs here. You can see it was installing like Node here, for example. And probably you can find my test running here. Let's see if the test was passing. We probably have the logs here. Yes, the test was passing, so everything is working as expected. So this command is going to generate the HTML that you are going to serve using Nginx. And I think everything is okay. And now we already see some logs from Nginx starting. You can see already some HTTP requests here that are happening. It's because we have a health check. So probably the health check is pinging to check if everything's okay. You can see like it's coming from some like kube control, like because of the Kubernetes that we're running behind the scenes. So I'm going to click in this link here. And that's it. So in a very simple step, just with zCloud deploy, we have a way to expose our HTML file using Nginx. And in this case, this file was generated by a jest test, but that's just a small detail that I put here to be a little bit fun for, especially for JavaScript developers. So now if you want to have your unit test exposed in a web page, you can do that. But now let's think about what you have here. So let's go back here. I'm just going to run my test. But if I make a change and now my test is breaking, maybe I want to also run this on GitHub, or I want to run this in a different place, but I also want to expose this in the web. So what I want to do now is a way that I can just generate this test in real time, and then I can just deploy using a GitHub action, because I don't want to be here all the time that I make a change. I don't want to come here and just run this again. I could do that, that's okay. We can even do it. It's going to generate a new version. In this case, we don't have any change, so it's going to look like just the date is probably going to update here because it's going to run the test again. But if I go here, you can see a new build is happening. So, but let's do this with GitHub. So I'm going to log into my GitHub account. I'm going to create a new repo, just HTML. I'm going to create as a public repo. That's not a problem. So you can check this code later if you want. So I'm going to add this. I'm going to use HTTPS because I don't need to type my password. So I'm going to do git init. I think I can even follow the steps here. So it's going to say to use git add. But I'm going to add everything. Then it's going to say like, okay, my first commit. Then it's going to ask the branch. Then I'm going to add to this remote. And then I'm going to push. If I already had my Git repository in the beginning, I could use the other option on zCloud. Let me go here so you just understand all the options. So when I go in zCloud, I could connect using this option here. Can you see? It's already here 6 seconds ago. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to connect this repository. I want to keep using my CLI, but now using a GitHub action. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create my configuration for using GitHub action. So you can see I don't have any action here probably. Yes, no actions. So I'm going to go to the docs again. So zCloud docs. And here you have GitHub action. If you don't find this docs, you can also go to the website, and we also have the instructions here. So it's going to go to the same page, GitHub action. So what I need to do, I need to create a file like this. So I'm going to copy this. So it's going to be easier. Behind the scenes, this action is using the CLI, the same CLI that we're using here. But when you create the action this way, it's just much easier. So I'm going to call this just deploy. It's a YAML file. It's just standard GitHub stuff. Then I'm going to copy this example here. I'm going to change this to deploy just HTML. I can just keep the main branch because I create as the main branch, so that's okay. I don't need to select the paths. I can deploy on every change. The paths is helpful when you have like a monorepo, so you just deploy when you change in a specific location. It's going to run Ubuntu. It's going to use the checkout, default checkout from GitHub. And then I have the step that is the deployment. So the deployment is going to use an action that we have for zCloud. So this is the action that behind the scenes is going to call our CLI. So what I need to get from here, I need my environment name. And you remember, I have my environment name here. So I'm just going to copy from here. Of course, you can also go in the UI, but I have this here. And I'm not in a monorepo, so I don't want to specify this, but I want to specify my env token. So to specify my env token, I can use here, but I can also drop here, but it's not a good practice because it's a token. It's authentication token, should be a secret. So I'm going to create this env token inside my GitHub account. So I'm going to leave here. I'm going to go back to my GitHub, settings. Then we have here secrets, actions, a new repository secret. And then that's going to be my secret content. And this is my secret name. So now I have this repository secret, so it should be available when my action runs inside this repository. And again, I'm not in a monorepo, so I don't need to specify the directory that I want to deploy. And that should be enough. Let's see. So deploy action. Let's use a verb here, adds deploy action. Okay. So now an action should be running here. Yes, now we have an action here. So this action is going to use our CLI, as I already said, but you're not going to see the CLI. It's just going to provide everything behind the scene. And it was really fast again because it's just an upload. So it's going to get my project and then it's going to send it to my zCloud account. So let's click here. It's probably the same link again because the same environment. And we have a new deploy running. But what I want to do now, because it's hard to believe everything is working that easy. So let's do something. So let's create a say hello to, so you can just see more tests being updated. But you can also improve this project, even if it fails to create this folder, because I'm not sure if it's going to create the folder with failures, because maybe it's going to block the action. But now I have this say hello to, and say hello to should say hello to, right? So say hello to, and then it should say hello to with a space. So we can do all the process again. Let's see if it's working. Now I have two tests, so the UI should be different. And then you can just push. You don't need to run the deploy from our machine. Creates a second test. And then push. So the other one is already published, but we are not sure if this is working or not because it's going to be the same content. Of course, you can see that was like 1.5 minutes ago, so it will probably work it from the GitHub. But let's see what happens now because we are going to receive a new build. So a new build is coming because a new action was fired here. Can you see? So now it usually is going to take like 30 seconds, as you can see here from the difference. So it's going to be really fast. It's already running. Let's see if you can see two tests instead of one. Let me scroll up. Yes, you have two tests. So now every time I push a change to this branch, we are going to have a new build here, and it's going to trigger a new deploy, and then we're going to have a new page with reports. So it's probably replace the containers. You can also watch the containers live here if you want. And you can also filter by container here. So probably a new one is coming up soon. I think it's already ready. So let's see. It's still one. It's probably replace the container because you have a blue-green deployment enabled here. So it's just going to replace the old one when the new one is 100% ready. And two tests passing. So if you want to expose your test, that's a nice way to do it. But also that's just a way for you to see how to connect zCloud with your CLI from your machine. And if you still need to deploy something from your machine, that's totally fine. You can just go here and deploy again. As you're using Docker and everything, it should be the same. Like you should not have like hidden configurations anywhere. So this is going to do the work fine as well. So if I go to my environment and I can go here and it's going to build in the same way. And you can also use action. So the action is really cool because you don't need to worry about running from your local machine. And then you can decide whatever rule you want here in the on. So you can configure any option that you have on GitHub. So I hope you learn how to do this process, like how to use also secrets integrated with your action, how to use the CLI, and how to do from your local machine. If you have any questions about zCloud, please let us know and then create your account and let's run in the cloud with us. See you later. Bye-bye.